All right, welcome everybody joining today for our Scaling Customer Support on Telegram and Discord webinar. Come one, come all. As you guys are coming in, feel free to say hi in the chat. Would love to see where people are from. So let's see who's farthest away in the world. If you want, definitely just leave just like a quick hi and like what state or country you're in. YouTube, Bastion, and Chad, you guys can also drop that. Just got that SF. Nice. New York, Bucharest, France. Nice. I bet Bucharest is probably going to take the cake for the farthest away here. Cool. Nice. Sweet. We'll give it another like 30 seconds maybe as we wait for folks. But yeah, before we start, yeah, Bastion, Chad, how many webinars have you guys done before? Is this your guys' first? Feels like that meme where James Franco's like standing on the gallows. He's like, first time.
Yeah, this is definitely my first. Excited to be here.
Nice.
Yeah, also the first time actually.
Sweet. Cool. All right, nice. Great. All right, as people are coming in, I guess we'll probably get started with intros and everything. So, welcome everybody who's joined for the Scaling Customer Support on Telegram, Slack, and Discord. Today we have Bastion and Chad here, some of our great customers and friends over at Privy and Alchemy. Why don't we start with a round of intros? Chad, why don't you go first? Give us your name, your position, what you guys do, kind of the high level points.
Definitely. Yeah. Hi all. My name is Chad. So I lead support operations at Privy. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Privy is essentially a wallets as a service infrastructure provider. We work with Web3 companies. That's kind of our roots. Over the years, we have started to spin towards more of a fintech side, but you can check us out at privy.io. And it's a little bit about me.
Cool. Thanks, Chad. Name is Bastion. I head up our solution engineering team at Alchemy. Alchemy, the blockchain infrastructure provider. So think of it as AWS for crypto. I'm excited to be here, in part because at Privy, and we actually worked with Privy in multiple ways as well, and then obviously worked with Pylon a ton on the Telegram integration. So thanks for having us, Robert.
Yeah, of course. And on my side, I'm Robert. I'm one of the co-founders here at Pylon. We're building a support system for B2B companies, including a lot of the hot crypto companies out there, like Privy and Alchemy. So happy to have you guys on for today. One of the big things, and maybe I can just go a little bit deeper on the Pylon side, right? So all-in-one for support for B2B, that includes a lot of those sources that you see out there for B2B companies. So not just the traditional sources like chat, email, ticket forms, but also like kind of the newer sources that you just don't even see in any of those other support systems, like Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, Slack, Microsoft Teams, kind of like the list goes on that side. So great place for B2B companies to collaborate. And I think we'll probably be talking about that a little bit more as we keep going. But first off, yeah, I mean, like, let's start with kind of introducing Privy and Alchemy. So maybe why don't you guys start off with what has the support journey been like for each of you guys at both Privy and Alchemy? So maybe Chad, do you want to go first? Like how is support, what did support look like when you guys started? Just way at the beginning, how has it evolved over time? And then like, let's go all the way up to like the point where you're like, oh, we need something, let's think about Pylon. Like what was it like beforehand?
Yeah, definitely happy to share details there. So when Privy first started, we sort of had this one huge developer community. We call it Dev Slack internally. And if you were to go to it right now at privy.io/Slack, you'll see that there are over 8,000 members there, each of which could represent a different customer, right? So We definitely needed to find a way to sort of scale that into providing like the same level of great support that we do across all of these developers, as well as dedicated channels, right? So the developer Slack channel is there for anyone to sort of chime in, but for certain customers, we also set up a dedicated line of direct contact with Privy. And so we were looking for a vendor that could sort of consolidate. That was sort of like the main thing that we were looking for, and came across Pylon. I think that Pylon does a really, really good job of consolidating that. But on top of it, as our team also grew internally, we realized that Pylon's sort of like assignment feature was really beneficial to us. So the way that we use Pylon today is sort of like the way that we used Pylon when we first brought them on, which is sort of routing all of the issues that come in, say from 8,000 people, into our team of like 50, right? So both as a sort of like a task management system, but also like making sure that, person A is managing this customer, person B is managing this customer. That's like the bread and butter of how we've used Pylon to date.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and would love to dig more into the assignment stuff later on. But first off, want to go all the way back to just that setup that you had right when you started. So it sounds like there was like a dev community, and I guess like what was the motivating factor for you to have the dev community in the first place, and then second off, like why were dedicated Slack channels like the clear answer for you guys after that?
Yeah, definitely. So to the first question, our product is like, when it comes down to it, it's like an SDK, right? We also surface API endpoints for you to call as a developer. And with that, we sort of wanted to build a community where developers could help each other. So that's why we sort of set up this developer Slack channel. If someone else is encountering an issue with like a Privy product that you are also, you can chime in there. We also wanted to make sure that, like our docs, which are very, very public facing, that any sort of communication that we had with developers, we were sort of building with the developers in a very public way, in sort of a partnered way, rather than a private way. I'd say that the sort of shift or like the need for dedicated channels is really as we're sort of approaching more like of the scaling phase, and sort of like partnering with more enterprise level customers, fintech level customers who are sort of like, I would say maybe rooted in this more traditional Slack focused form of communication, where we're discussing things all sorts, not just technical, but sort of like commercials, pricing. That was kind of the need for dedicated Slack channels. And I'd say that Pylon has done a good job of filling that gap as well.
Cool, sweet. Yeah, so it sounds like dev community because you were selling to developers or like serving developers, and it's always great for them to kind of be in their own channel together and like ask questions. And it sounds like the dedicated Slack channels are more of like a upmarket kind of like business critical kind of thing as you went more enterprise or more upmarket, I guess. So that makes sense. Bastian, tossing you the same question, I guess, like what did the timeline of building up support look like at Alchemy?
Yeah, totally. I've seen quite a few evolutions. I joined Alchemy almost 4 years ago, so kind of seen us evolve from, at the time when I joined, we were around the 50 mark, and now we're at more than 200. And the number of customers has also increased dramatically. So that also has impacted how we do support. I think when I joined, we had one Discord channel or a Discord group that people could, jump in and like throw their questions into, which was hard to track. And then we also had, we started a lot on Telegram. So Telegram, what we call VIP channels, we did this a lot. And the reason we did channels at the time for these direct channels, Telegram VIP was, and we still use them today in the same way, was to get a lot of product feedback and what to make customers feel special. So just that loop that you had, like there was a lot of feedback that we got for our products in these Telegram VIP groups that we had. So it was kind of like a win-win, We'd build a relationship with these customers. They'd feel like, they were just almost talking to their friends and have like a VIP treatment. We'd also get feedback on the product, and we were able to solve their issues really quickly. So that's kind of how we started off. And the really cool thing about this team was it was only staffed with engineers or people with engineering background, meaning that when you talked in these VIP channels. These were, well, our entire team was there. Like our co-founders were there, our sales team was there, like engineers were there. So you came on, you had 30 people in the chat. So it kind of at times was overwhelming for some teams, but overall they were like, oh, this is cool. Like, there's like 30 people from Alchemy. And so as I said, we had like engineers handling them, and as we scaled, what became a bit trickier, we kind of expanded it to various avenues. So we decided to build our own internal version of Pylon. I think we talked to you guys. I remember talking to Marty when you guys were maybe like 4 people or 5 people, I think.
Like a few months, 3 to 6 months old.
Yeah. I told him our initial system, which was a set of bots on Slack and Telegram that were basically hitting the Notion APIs and using Notion as a task tracking. He laughed at me, I think. I remember he was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, we don't have a better choice. So, I mean, we could talk about all these different parts, but ultimately what we landed on was Pylon. And for actually the same reasons Chad mentioned, I think the first and most obvious use case is just consolidating everything in one place. And when you have like different systems, so we had like Maven for Discord for a while, we had Zendesk for email, then we had we had our own system for Slack and Telegram. So there's 3 systems. And where Marty was smart, he was like, oh, just try move Zendesk first. And we're like, okay, like we'll move Zendesk. And then we're like, okay, might as well just expand and go all the way as you guys added more things in. So now we consolidate everything. And I'll wrap it up by saying the really cool thing is we finally have like aggregated metrics. That's a really thing, it's something we value a ton, versus before it was very hard to have like a unified view of what's going on across all the different support tiers that we provide, right? Like, so free, pay as you go, enterprise. Now everything is consolidated. We have like a single pane of glass. And I think that's been the most obvious and biggest improvements for us moving to Pylon.
Yep. Yeah, it's very interesting that you pointed out analytics, and Chad, you're pointing out like the Slack channels as a way to go more enterprise. I think like there's a common theme here as you guys are more maturing as a company. It's important to put in those same processes that you see at like non-crypto companies, but you just don't have that same tooling in the crypto world. So that makes a lot of sense.
One thing, Robert, that Chad also talked about was like the assignment feature, and it's funny because like on these topics that Chad brought up, it's also something that we've been leveraging a bit more recently as well, in terms of some of the AI assignment rules of like having some of these triggers to be like automated. That's been pretty cool and actually more useful than I anticipated. Not to say I didn't think it would be useful, but it's been like pretty cool to automate some of that as well.
Yep, cool. And this, maybe before we dive too much into the complexities of the system, would love to just set the stage on like going back here. So I know we kind of like talked about each of your setups. Would love to try and get thoughts here on like what actually is unique about the support in Web3 specifically. Like what differentiates it from any of the other like kind of B2B verticals, and why does that make it difficult to use any of the existing tools?
I'll let Chad go first. I think you had great thoughts on the previous one as well.
Sure, I can hop in here. So I think the sort of short answer here is that there's just like a contingent of Web3 customers that just don't trust Slack and just don't trust sort of these like legacy products, if you will, that are more catered towards enterprise. I think when Telegram was launched, it has sort of this motto of decentralization, transparency, that I think something like a Slack just inherently doesn't have, as at least as its reputation goes. Even to this day, when someone on my go-to-market team brings in a new customer who needs support, I'll see the chat history and it'll say like, "No, we don't use Slack." And the more times than not, it is a Web3 sort of crypto native customer. And that's totally fine because we have Pylon and we can integrate them into our process anyway. But I think it has to do with sort of this like reputation, right? And then I would say the other part is just economics. Telegram can be free for companies to use, and Slack might not necessarily always be the case. We even have today like people saying, I don't want to sign up for Slack Connect. And that's really not the case with these like larger enterprise customers who have Slack Connect with their hundreds of other vendors already and are willing to just like set one up with Privy. Bastian, any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially on the latter point on like the cost side, it's one when you're in your bubble of like integrating with like a bunch of Slack channels, you might not consider that, but then actually reach out to other customers, and the simplicity of creating a Telegram group and not having the friction of, in some sense being a paywall to create like Slack Connects makes it easier. I would say like the simple answer is just meeting where customers are. We kind of found this balance between let's meet them everywhere to start, like so Discord, Telegram, Slack, email, and so on, and let's just consolidate and improve the quality of our support in a small set or a smaller set of channels while using Pylon. And I think on the Telegram piece, to Chad's point, there's some teams that are simply on Telegram or just more comfortable being on Telegram. The crypto space as a whole does use that tool a lot.
Yeah.
I push back on it's a reputation thing, but like frankly, the Telegram itself is no more secure than Signal or any of that, and by default it's unencrypted. So I don't know. Just I'm sharing this out because people think, oh, it's secure and encrypted. By default, it's not unless you're using a secret chat. So
Well, that's good to know that.
That's besides the point, but yeah, we still have to support Telegram, and we're happy to do so given teams out there. So happy to provide them there.
That's pretty funny. Cool. And then I guess like it's going to be more. It sounds like the people who are using Telegram are going to be more like secure, or I guess, yeah, security conscious or cost conscious. But I guess curious, like if you back it out even further, like what is the commonality behind all those customers? Are they generally going to be like smaller? Are they generally going to be like like international? Like what is that common thread that you see there, like firmographically, so to speak?
Yeah. I'd say on our side, I wouldn't pinpoint it down to like a certain size or geography. I would say the ones that are like the most, almost you like to use the term degen or like crypto specific, will typically be in Telegram and have nothing else. The larger teams in the crypto industry, all have Slack to some extent. And frankly, that's one thing I was also sharing with you guys, I think last week, was we started creating these Telegram chats 2, 3, sometimes 4 years ago. We kind of stayed in them and never went through them to say, hey, do you guys want to migrate to Slack? And funnily enough, like just last week, I think I migrated like 30 odd teams to Slack. And it just took they were like, yeah, we're kind of done with Telegram too. That's not to say Telegram is still very useful, but I think more and more teams are also opening up to the idea of moving to Slack just because it makes it easier.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. Why do you guys think that Slack is easier than Telegram? What is the minutia that makes it easier for these teams on their side that outweigh the benefits of like the fake security and the cost?
Meaning why would they be picking Slack over
Telegram? Why would they pick Slack over Telegram? And like what does that conversation look like? Like how it sounds like there isn't even that much convincing that needs to happen.
I mean, on my side, I would say 3 things. Threads, you can't thread in Telegram, well, you kind of can, but it's like a nightmare. So just people have now it's just easier, especially if you think from a support perspective. We're kind of pushing teams to as much as possible thread. So we're like, hey, continuing this conversation in this thread if they post twice, because it just makes the unit of thinking so much easier, right? That's 1. 2, it's much easier to add the entire team. Not everyone in our team has Telegram. So I'm thinking specifically on the engineering side, if we have an issue and we're debugging it, we're kind of having to go back and forth. I'd rather just say, hey, let's add the Eng team there so they have visibility. So we default to creating public channels on our side, so the engineers or PMs or frankly any person in the business can join in. And then I had a third, but I forgot it. So maybe I'll come back. But I would say these are the main points on my side.
Yeah. I've also noticed a lot of our Telegram customers will find it useful that the Slack profile is just there, so you just know the person, right? Except in Telegram, it's a number, and so now you have to map it to who they actually are. So there's just a little bit extra data deduping that you have to do there. I've also noticed that a lot of folks at crypto companies, some people just don't have Telegram accounts, which is surprising to me. But I've heard it occasionally at some of our customers, especially if they're like a salesperson joining and they're just brand new to the crypto world. So cool, nice. So I think there's also some interesting questions around why support customers on Telegram, Discord, and Slack. We just talked about the difference between Telegram and Slack. I think I really want to try and hit on this Discord point here. So Bastian, it sounds like you guys had a Discord community. Chad, you guys started only on Slack community. So It seems like there's a difference there. Want to really parse apart like the decision making there around like Discord community, how that evolved with you, Bastian, because it sounds like that's now not a thing anymore. So wanted to maybe why don't we start with your experience, Bastian, around the Discord piece.
Yeah, totally. So when I joined, we had one Discord, the Alchemy Discord. So any developers at the time, and we still do today, but at the time we were pushing a lot of educational content on the Alchemy side and trying to ramp up people on the blockchain space, kind of like having tutorials and whatnot. And so we had like a really active community team within Discord, and we still do today. We still use Discord as one way, but like we had one part of Discord, and we were doing support there. That's what I mean to say. Then we then launched Alchemy University. That became two separate Discords. So one remained like the support Discord, and one became the Alchemy University Discord. And shout out, we had like a ton of ambassadors that have been supporting us there a ton. So want to give them a big thank you as well. And what we then ultimately realized, we were using this tool called Mava at the time for Discord. It's really hard to do support like in Discord. You do have like threads where you can kind of think through it, but really it made a lot more sense to just centralize that elsewhere. So we eventually said, hey, let's just keep like Discord for community, right? And get the community excited, share new tutorials or the like for them to go through. And then help where we can, but to truly do support in the sense of we're beholden to response times. We want to get back to teams as quickly as possible. It's very easy from our perspective to kind of get lost in the sauce on Discord. So consolidate on Slack, Telegram, email as the primary touch point. Oh, I say this in in-app dashboards. We also use your integration there, so customers can reach out to us in the dashboard. Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah. And then Chad, on your side, I guess like what do you know much of the context around like why Privy started with a Slack dev channel instead of like a Discord or
I think first I'll disclaim that I don't have like the full context here. It predates me for sure, but from what I gather, I think the decision was based around sort of Discord being known for more of like a voice-based community, like with an emphasis on sort of like real-time communication, right? Like these like 10-person voice calls basically associated normally with just like gamers. And I think like to us, it didn't really scale well. I mentioned that our developer Slack community now has like 8,000 people in it. That just like, does not translate to live voice calls. And so I think like for us, we sort of made this delineation, this call where, we provide really instant service and it is text-based and we're available to huddle with you if you need to. But it's just not something that we saw that we could really benefit from in sort of like setting up a Discord community. And we thought that Slack served our purposes or were more aligned.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's also very interesting to note I guess like in the last few years, I know that Discord's put out kind of like an article saying how they do want to shy away from the more business use cases and go more towards that gaming sector. So I think you're spot on in your observation that they are more voice-based and more gaming. So that makes a lot of sense. I think there's also Bastian. Yeah.
Robert, I was going to ask you, how did you guys start doing support?
Yeah. It was all Slack support, right? Like
it was all Slack, fully from the get-go. I was wondering if you had like other channels when you started as well.
Because when we started the company, we were just an integration between Slack and other systems, and so
that's true. Yep.
We realized that the why now for the company was seeing that companies, in particular B2B companies, were talking to each other over these new channels, and Slack just happened to be like the most obvious answer in the tech world. And so we started our own we ate our own
dog food, the whole product.
We ate our own dog food. Right. So we started opening up Slack channels, and then it quickly blew up beyond like 1,000 Slack channels. I don't know how many we have now. I'm sure there's like thousands at this point. So.
Yeah. The one thing I just wanted to get back on, I found what the third point was in terms of like Slack was the ease of integrations, right? Like, so the ability to like even build with API or bots is unmatched for having ourselves build the tooling or integrated with it, either external tools we can hook in or build ourselves. It's just a blessing to work with the API relative to the other ones.
Yep. I do think that has been and is still one of Slack's differentiators is their API is just top notch, not just for a communication channel, but just like across the board. I think a lot of people use them as like the gold standard for like how docs should look, what API endpoints we should have, how much functionality, that kind of thing. So,
Yep. No, I agree. The craft, you can feel the craft in what they build, so it's really cool to use.
Yep. Yeah, as long as Salesforce doesn't make it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, fingers crossed. Cool. There's also an interesting through line here where both of you guys have a community in the first place. I know that that's less common in the tech world, and it's interesting the reasons why you guys have the community. I think this is maybe just something to point out about the Web3 world that I've always really appreciated is like it's way more collaborative and community based. Whereas like most other companies, when they create a community, it's very much like wishful thinking of like, oh, this is a support community where people will answer, like we just don't need to do support anymore because like they'll just answer each other's questions. And like that usually doesn't happen. Or usually people will use it as like a pure like, I'm just gonna like, I don't know, like hard DM and sell people directly in that community, and it turns a little too commercial too quickly. I think that the crypto world is really about like building that community vibe first and foremost, and then like of course there are great downstream like benefits to it in the long run. So cool, sweet. Let's see. Maybe moving more into the realm of Pylon and how Pylon has helped you guys up level. I mean, Chad, let's go back to the assignment workflow that you mentioned. I guess like before after state, why don't you like just detail out like what problems you had before and like how that was solved very specifically with Pylon?
Yeah, happy to. So I mentioned that one of the things that Pylon does that's just such a lifesaver is consolidation. And it's sort of like, let's just get a bird's eye view of all of our customer issues where Pylon exists across all channels, right? Email, Slack, and Telegram mainly being the ones that Privy uses. I think before Pylon, this looks like, in Slack, this looks like forwarding the message to a public channel internally and saying like, and tagging certain people here and there. And we know we all live busy lives. We are inundated with Slack notifications, and things can sort of fall through the cracks that way. I think the thing that Pylon does well to solve that is like within Pylon dashboard, you can actually assign tickets to people. They can look back at it. They can escalate things internally, create internal threads. These have all been ways to sort of like add a layer of support above what Slack natively does. So replace these sort of like internal Slack functions with like things that are way more streamlined and auditable. I'll let Bastian talk about like sort of like SLAs and sort of like automations. Those are things that Privy hasn't explored, I would say, as much as sort of like these bread and butter tools. But the assignment has worked really well. And then I'll just add on the Telegram front. The way that it looked was actually like screenshots. And so we had people screenshotting what they saw on Telegram and sharing an image of that into our internal Slack and saying like, hey, can someone jump in and respond? So take what I said about Slack, but make it even worse. And so with the Telegram integration now, it's so streamlined and so nice.
Sweet. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's crazy that you guys are doing the screenshot thing actually. Yeah. Bastian, I'd love to hear more about your journey, kind of professionalizing a lot of these support workflows, and you guys have that unique flow where you moved from a system that you had already to us. So you guys are pretty unique in that sense. So.
Yeah, totally. One thing we optimized for when we started was really fast response times. So I think our median still to this day is sub 2 or 3 minutes response time, which has been awesome. And frankly, a reason that a lot of teams really like working with us. They really do value it, and they say like, your support is great. And so what we had built initially was beyond like tracking the tickets and issue side of things, which I'll touch on, was a customer alert channel where we had written our own bots to send a message in that channel anytime a customer messaged. And when we do the assignments in that channel, pretty much, or by assignments, it was pretty much tagging people. So eventually we improved that such that you had like a Slack dropdown that we built as well, where you could select it on our own like UI. But ultimately, Pylon was just the single best place to consolidate everything, as I mentioned. And one thing we've been using a ton, which in my mind is the most underrated feature of Pylon, which Chad touched on, is the internal, so linking the internal threads. I knew it existed, and then when we started using it, like I use Pylon now as like my main UI. The amount of times that we had to be like, oh, where did you post about this, or where did you ask Eng about this, or have you asked it? Like now, it's having this in the same UI. It seems silly, but it's been such an improvement in having. I have the customer conversation, I have my internal threads, and I have like internal threads with the team, and also my internal debugging thread that's personal on the Pylon side. So that's been really huge. There's other parts I could touch on that we also use. We find a lot of value in, but yeah, I think one pane of glass connecting all the threads in one UI, that alone is worth moving to Pylon. So
nice, yeah. It's pretty cool how like the omni-channel consolidation externally isn't just all the value that you're getting. It's a lot of the consolidation internal as well, where you just start losing threads. Before we move on to a lot of the other workflows, I guess like curious if I was like a new crypto founder or building up my support flows for the first time, what is the tipping point for me? Like when is getting assistant actually the right time? Like what are the signs? Because I'm sure if I just start a company right now, like try for the first like 5 customers, 10, 20 customers, like probably could just last on Telegram, right? Or Slack or Discord and like juggle it for the first like few months of the company. But like when do you think is the right time to even consider something like this?
No, that's fine. I could take a stab. I think one, if you're multi-platform, that's already kind of a no-brainer, frankly, just not having to deal and go through multiple platform. You could argue if you have like 2 customers in Telegram, 2 in email, and 2 in Slack, that's kind of fine, but it's still a bit of a pain. So frankly, I use the Pylon UI to see everything in one place. And as I said, like it might seem like the unsexy part, it's the sexiest part. It's like the best part about like, we haven't even touched on the AI features, but it's just so seamless. And then I would, on the Slack side, like I think we got away with having our own tooling, like up to a few like tens, if not hundreds of channels. Like I'd say probably like 30, 40, and that's when we had this customer alert flow, which Pylon replaces, right? So I'd say around like the 30 mark. At one point, it just gets too hectic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Chad, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I can add to this. I would say like my answer is not like a sort of like rigid metrics-based answer, but I think a simple heuristic is like, as soon as ownership is sort of unclear, it might be time that you think about like implementing a support system like this, where at the end of the day, if you're looking through your messages and you're like, wait, I don't remember who's working on this exactly, I think it's probably a sign that something is broken there, right? Like whether it's like internal escalation policy, when you're sort of questioning that, I think that's like a good heuristic.
Yeah.
That is actually such a good point. Like it's way beyond just like responding. I think you can, I wouldn't say do away without Pylon, but like you can get away like for the first channels, like responding, like that's fine. But like the ability to then track and like the follow-ups is one part that it's actually such a valid point. Like that's probably the single part, like one of the most important parts of where Pylon comes in, because you might not get notifications on the Slack threads, or you forget that you answered, the customer hasn't gotten back, but you still owe them an answer, right? These kind of things are very hard to track once you go past a certain amount of channels and platforms you're on.
Yep, exactly. I think like that key there of not dropping any of the threads, I think that is oftentimes a very big motivator for folks, as usually the first like, oh, goddamn, like we forgot about this prospect or this customer and they've been bumping us for like 5 days and we haven't responded. Like that kind of feeling is usually like okay, there's something wrong here, we need to go get something. So at least what we see with a lot of our other customers. So
yeah, no, I agree.
Cool, nice. So as you guys are building up your workflows, I mean, it sounds like Chad, assignment flows have been like the big thing and big step for you guys. And Bastien, it sounds like you guys might have a little bit more on the automation side. Would love to think about like what is the future for you guys? Like what is that next step in up leveling kind of your support flows. And I guess like maybe I'm more asking like what problem do you perceive as like the next problem that's coming out there, and how are you thinking of solving it?
Yeah, totally. I'll let Chad go first.
Yeah, I'd say that maybe the next step is exploring the suite of like integrations, right? I think Pylon works really well with our existing stack to the extent that we've already sort of like set it up, Slack, Telegram, all the things we've mentioned. But we use other tools too. We use HubSpot as our CRM. And I think that like Pylon integrates really well with these other systems. And I think end to end, what we envision is sort of like a seamless experience for the customer. But really what's that's supported by is like, okay, the moment a customer enters our funnel, they're being tracked in our CRM. Their issues are then being tracked in Slack through Pylon. Any feature requests are then routed over to Asana. And right now, some of these pieces they exist, but I think they could be sort of like melded together better, such that our customers really experience this like 100%, from the moment they step in the door to the feature that they requested being shipped live. That's kind of our next step there.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, a lot of the integrations we have a lot of those integrations, and they go pretty deep, way deeper than any other platform. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And cool. Bastian, what about on your side? What is the next kind of phase of the support flows at Alchemy?
Yeah, I think like AI is obviously a big piece in trying to implement AI agents. That's not to say I think one of the value and differentiated value adds that Alchemy has had is the human touch, the ability to talk to our engineers directly. That doesn't go away. Where I see it come in first is having the moment a customer reaches out, we're already kicking off the investigation through additional tooling or MCPs to spin a Pylon internal thread that says like, this is what I found, this is why I think like the issue is, and so on. And we still have our team review it, and it just speeds up like at the scale, like the amount of tickets that we do have, like even gaining 5 minutes for every ticket at the end of the day, like a huge time saving. So that's one area we're exploring. Obviously, setting more of these workflows or triggers, as they're called in Pylon, is something as well. This helps us automate some of the assignment. I'll give you a concrete example. Part of our business and a lot of the work that we do is we work with a range of different blockchains. So a customer might say, hey, like we're seeing this issue on this blockchain. It sometimes takes us working with the blockchain teams. And these teams also post releases. So typically updates that we need to make on the infrastructure that we run, the nodes that we run. All this to say that we use Pylon triggers to monitor all these chain partner channels, and then run some AI prompt to say, is this a node upgrade, is it not? And then funnel that to the right chain owner that we have tagged in Pylon. So that's something we're going to continue expanding on. And then as a whole, maybe the last point, this goes beyond just the tickets or issue side of things. Now we have the single pane of glass, right? Where we have all our tiers, everyone is centralized in one place. We're going to look to overhaul our product feedback loop, which is great, but I think can benefit from having more quantifiable data. And given we have all this context now in Pylon, we're starting to play around with some of the features you offer there and seeing what that looks like. So I'd say these are probably the next steps for us.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and Bastian, I love how you touched upon like a lot of the different kind of like next set of that
I'm almost selling the product here. I mean, there's cool features, and I think people should know about them, and we definitely use them in various ways. So we're always excited when you guys are shipping more stuff for us to try out.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, would love to actually dig into the AI side of things, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious about it. Yeah, could you maybe dive a little deeper into some of the, I mean, it sounds like there's some of these assist kind of features where instead of just straight like answering the question, a lot of times it sounds like a lot of your questions are going to be a little harder. So it's more kind of using AI to help you get all the information and do what AI is good at, so that a human can do what a human's good at and like actually interpret that information and then answer the question. Would love to hear more about like what maybe is there anything crypto specific there and like a workflow or how you're bringing up that information that would be interesting to talk through.
Yeah, I can answer that. So I don't know if there's anything crypto specific about what we're doing. It's really, you have an input, like a customer reaches out, you have to kind of go back and forth to collect the right amount of information to then be able to debug on your side. And once that's done, you want to kick off some process where you're fetching from your different data stores, or you're doing the same debugging process that you would typically do, but automate some of that. So that's kind of the direction we're going, pushing in. So actually, Peter and Oscar from our team are like exploring this, and we're hoping to have more updates very soon. But that's more so to speed up our resolution time, right? Like I mentioned, we focus on response time, we focus on not dropping the ball. I think and Pylon's going to help a ton with this, so I'm excited there. And in resolution time, I think could always be sped up, right? No one's going to complain if you resolve that issue faster. So that's where AI plays in. The last thing I will say is, like, in terms of like the AI assistance in the Pylon sense of the features, there's been some non-agentic features that have been interesting, which has solved the problem for us. For instance, we tag tickets, so like what blockchain it was on, like what request method, that kind of stuff. And in our own system, before we relied on the team to basically tag them, it was a lot of like, hey guys, like please don't forget to like tag them correctly. Like now it basically does it for, I'd say 90%, right? So it's not, the whole of them, so long as we update the AI filter. And these are quality improvements. And again, it's not like the highlight feature, but like day to day, they're really valuable. So that's been helpful too.
Cool, sweet. Yeah, it's a lot of those little things and little micro optimizations that add up into kind of like that full efficiency gain across the team. That makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Chad, would love to hear if I'm not actually sure. Have you played around with any of the AI features, or have anything top of mind that you were excited about, have been using, or kind of want?
Yeah, definitely. I think similar to Bastion, nothing too crypto specific, but the AI features have been super helpful in just our general like product feedback loop. I'm thinking specifically of like the Ask AI feature, which is just something that you can, it is kind of like talking to an LLM. You can just ask it any question, except the benefit is that it can read all of your Slack messages all at once. And so the way that we use this like pretty frequently is, internally, whenever we have a feature launch, whenever Privy launches a new feature, we want to make sure that we're reaching out to every customer that's asked about this in the past. And like the Pylon Ask AI feature is like a really good way for us to do that. We recently launched like HCAPTCHA, which is like a new offering to sort of like mitigate bot activity on Privy apps. And we literally went to Pylon and said like, hey, in the past like X amount of time, who's asked about this feature? And I think like if you're a customer, to hear back when, in the past you've expressed interest for a certain feature, is like, I think it's a really good sort of like customer experience to make sure to really know that, your voice is heard and your asks are being tracked and ticketed and things are getting followed up on. And so we use that. And then the second thing I'd say is that at Privy, we are an engineering company, but there are a certain number of people on our support team that don't have like extremely technical backgrounds, but are customer facing. And so I think like using the Ask AI feature there has been really helpful in sort of providing a first response that helps move the ball forward, right? It can sort of like do this initial sort of troubleshooting that I think without AI can be really difficult. And in the end here, this sort of like speeds up our response time, to Bastion's point.
Yeah. I think like you bring up two core AI use cases that we see a lot of. The first, when I actually used that myself, when we were releasing Telegram, I asked AI who wanted the Telegram integration, and then I used that as the list of like, okay, who should we hit up for beta? Who should we be blasting? Alongside I don't know if either of you have tried out the product intelligence product, but it's essentially like even more well-structured kind of feature request extraction. So that's really cool. I think that the second point you also brought up around like people trying to get that first line answer from all of the past issues, like that's also a pretty useful use of Ask AI. I've noticed a lot of people use that when onboarding new employees as well. That's also a really cool way to just get ramped up on what are people asking about, how do we usually answer this question in the past. So yeah, that's really cool. Sweet. Yeah. I guess like coming up to the last slide here. Just wanted to put it out there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A section or in the chat. But while people are maybe putting in questions, would love to see Bastian, Chad, like if you have any last parting thoughts on like kind of like the future of crypto support. Like where do you see, maybe not just Pylon, but just like where do you see the space going, if anything? Yeah. It's a bit of a vague question, but again, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think anything we're doing is specific to crypto. I think what's specific to crypto is the fact that, maybe more than other industries, we are in very in direct channels or comms, and we respond very, very quickly. And I think the same is true of Privy. And the where I see it going, I mean, ultimately we want to build the customer experience, not just in crypto, like across the board. That's what we want to do. I think AI, as we mentioned, is going to play a big part, right? Like, it is buzzwordy, but it's a reality. Like I mentioned, like having the ability to handle, support customers faster. So respond faster, resolve issues faster, even ourselves have a better understanding of what's going on across the board as you get more and more teams, is what I'm excited about. And, building a well-oiled machine that can handle all that. And I think Pylon is going to be a huge part of that process.
Yep. Chad?
Yeah, +1 to everything Bastian said. I'll say like on the crypto side, I do think that, as time goes on, I think we're seeing sort of a deeper integration with TradFi actually, like with stablecoins, tokenization. I feel like the market is kind of maturing in that sense. And you can see sort of like these Fortune 500 companies issuing stablecoins on debit cards, credit cards, and I think that's sort of where the market is moving. As it relates to support, though, I sort of go back to what I said before. It's going to be increasingly important that sort of like Pylon integrates and plays well with these other tools that we're also scaling as a company for. As the market grows, Privy is growing. We're going to need better tools in other areas, and we're going to have to make sure that Pylon plays well with those. And so that's kind of where I see it going.
Cool. Sweet. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Looks like we do have 2 questions that just came in. So let's see. Let's do them in order. So Wendy, any plans to support WeChat integrations in the near future? At this point on our side, we haven't got many. We haven't gotten too many feature requests for WeChat. But I mean, it's another system that we're probably going to do in the future. We just need more folks asking for it, and we'll build it out. So yeah, thank you, Wendy, for putting that feature request. But yeah, Bastian.
Maybe to +1, like, that was us when we asked for Telegram, and, eventually dreams do come true. So I'm pretty sure that helped us a ton when we finally had Telegram. So
yeah, Bastian, I do think it's very funny that there have only been maybe 3 customers ever who have tried building Pylon internally, and I think you guys maybe were the first we had come across, and we were impressed. We were like, whoa. That's kind of crazy. They put in like years of effort to rebuild what we want to build. It's like, it was very, very fun to see that. But yeah, I think both of you guys had put in that vote for Telegram, and ask and ye shall receive, and here we are today. So
nice.
Cool. Ravi has asked a question, interested in knowing more about Telegram support scaling using Pylon. Telegram is big in Web3. The problem is it doesn't have any threading. Yeah, curious if you guys have really dug into the threading logic yet, or if you want to take a stab at it. I can also answer the question too if you
I can take a stab at this from my experience. Yeah, we've had the Telegram integration set up for pretty much day 1 when it was GA'd. I'll say that like it is pretty close to getting like to Slack level threading. Yeah, it doesn't introduce like a native threading within Telegram, obviously, but when issues come through to Pylon, I would say that Pylon AI, or the underlying sort of like logic, does a pretty good job of separating issues based on the content. So our Telegram threads are like, it's just a dump, right? So like you have sort of technical questions, you have marketing questions, you have sales questions, And I'd say that Pylon does a really good job of separating those into separate issues so that internally when we route them, they're going to the right people who need to see them.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, not knowing how it works under the hood, but I'm assuming you're using the same threading engine or, under the hood on Slack or Telegram. That's been working pretty well. Yes, the reality is Telegram doesn't really have like threads. The one thing that you do have is the ability to reply to a message. So I'd love to see that being used as an input to your threading algorithm. I don't know if that's the case today. I suspect it might not be. I think that'd be just a very small improvement. In basically you can know what, let's say I post like a week ago and then you reply to that one. I don't know how that situation would work. So far since we've used it, honestly, it's been great and not had any issues. So I trust the algorithm already.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah. And for you, Ravi, just for context, we take all the messages and we're using AI to bundle similar messages together that are single topics into units of issues. And so you don't have to manage a bunch of these random messages floating around or have like the whole chat in one big long thread. We kind of portion it out so you have it topic by topic. So cool.
And maybe just to add to this, Ravi, is it's the same as you're familiar with Pylon on Slack. It's the same as if someone was posting, they don't thread and they post continuously. So it kind of like gives you the same experience. That does happen on Slack as well, right? So it's, at that point we try and course correct the behavior with our teams directly. But on Telegram, you of course can't do that because there's no threads.
Yeah, sometimes you need to nudge them a little bit, like, hey.
Yeah, you gotta be like, hey, continuing the investigation in the other thread, and people get it over time.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions here in the chat? Anything else? If not, going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody in the chat, and thank you so much, Bastian and Chad, for giving your time here this morning. Thanks everybody for joining. Yeah. All right. See ya.
Thank you.
Of course.